Hi, I'm Bridget Zoltek, and this is the teacher training module for the Smart Study Skills series. The basic process of the Smart Study Skills program begins with the personalized learning profile. That helps develop the Smart Study plan for chapter test, which in turn develops the Smart Study plan for semester exams. Now it's time to fill out the personalized learning profile, which can be found on page 1. It is on page 1 to help you, the teacher, communicate with your student and know them more in depth. You can easily access the information and use it for a participation grade, a notebook check, or a parent conference. The student begins the process with filling in their name and grade. Then they need to turn to page 23 and find the learning inventory. They need to take the learning inventory and write the results, which is their learning style, in the third line down. They need to look up their specific learning strategy based on this learning style on pages 31 through 33. They can then pick their top 3 favorite strategies and write them in the appropriate spaces. It's important that they pick 3 because all assignments cannot use the same strategies. Then they need to turn to page 25 and take the dominance and social inventory. This tells which side of the brain they prefer to learn with, their dominance, and if they prefer to study in a group or individual setting, their social preferences. This can also help you when you have class group assignments. When forming a group, it's always good for the students to have discussion and recognize who is a group kid, because they usually like to be the presenter. Who is the creative, right brain person in the group, because they like to make posters and PowerPoints. Who likes to work alone? They're the individual kid. They're probably left-brained, because they are often organized and enjoy doing research, but usually they don't like to present. Every group should be balanced to work efficiently and for the grades to be distributed evenly. By the way, a student who prefers working as an individual may have trouble coming to you for help, or they may be afraid that others will mock their suggestions or questions. They are typically shy by nature and often do not like public recognition or interaction. Please be gentle when trying to communicate with them. Although they're shy, if you connect with them individually, they will never forget that you took the time to get to know them, and they will jump through hoops of fire for you. Next, they need to read Creating Your Personal Learning Profile on pages 29 through 30. This will walk them through the steps of filling out the personalized learning profile if they forget or get lost. Then they turn to page 34 and pick the top 2 study interferences from the list. These need to be interferences they recognize. Have them write the number as well as a word or 2 or a descriptive phrase down. Then they need to turn to the next page, page 35 through 38, and find the correlating solutions for the problems that they just identified. The next facet of the Smart Study Skills program is the Smart Study Plan for chapter tests. The forms were on page 2 and 3 of the student manual, but there are more downloadable forms online that can either be accessed through the QR codes in the book or on the website. In order to have appropriate information to build their Smart Study Plan, students must first learn about goal setting. This is such an important chapter, and I cannot stress enough it should not be omitted. After they learn about SMART goals, they will then take the SMART study exercise found on page 47. They should also take advantage of exploring the over 50 memory skills found on pages 61 through 66. When they cover note-taking, you can either cover the whole chapter, but they must learn at least about study cards, and that's on page 77 through 78. Then they should learn about different test types and strategies to use for each type. This information can be found on pages 79 through 82. Now they're ready to make their own smart study plan for a chapter test. Now we're on to forming a smart study plan for semester exams. If the students have been using the Smart Study Plan for Chapter Test and evaluating their results, they should be used to correcting any mistakes on their old test and forming new strategies as they go along. They will need to read about semester exam prep on pages 83 through 85 and learn how to make a study calendar for semester exams. The calendars can be found on pages 4 and 6 in the front of the book. They are also downloadable through QR codes or off the website. In the weeks before the exam, be sure to check their calendars and their Smart Study Plan page for exams and make sure they have a written plan for their exams. You cannot make them use the time they've written down, but you can make sure they at least have enough time slotted. If they're carrying a C or below in your class, they probably should spend at least 3 days each week studying, because there's a huge probability they have a lot of information to correct from previous chapter tests. They also will probably need to reorganize it. If they have a B or above, 2 days a week will probably be enough. Now the students are ready to learn how to use their Smart Study Calendar for exams that's found on pages 4 and 6. These can also be downloaded through QR codes or off the website directly. They need to read the instructions on page 84 and look at the sample on page 85. First, they fill in the dates. Then they cross out any non-study days. The example I gave here are Christmas and New Year's, but they can also do birthdays or other holidays. They can then highlight the exam week to give them a visual cue as to how far away they are from exams. They need to label the exams within exam week in bold. Then they need to code each subject throughout the month 2 to 3 times depending upon the grade they're currently carrying. This should give them enough of a plan to be much more successful and less stressed during exams. Now it's time to cover the chapter about SMART goals. This chapter is so important to cover. Do not skip it at any cost. It's my experience that students who cannot prepare well for tests have a serious problem setting success-oriented goals. They often tend to let everyone around them set the goals for them. Then they don't feel any pressure to achieve the goals because they were really someone else's goals to begin with. Goal setting is not too difficult if you set SMART goals. SMART goals have been around forever in the business world, and now we're going to apply the same successful principle to studying. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-oriented. If you're unclear on this chapter, call me, email me, do whatever it takes to get a good understanding. Students who have trouble with their executive function skills, such as attention, planning, organization, inhibition, or others, almost always have trouble with goal setting, and you will probably need to walk them through it. Watch your right brain kids. Check their personal learning profile to find out if the right brain. This is often a struggle for them. Be very careful not to form goals for them or impose them on the student. They must learn to set goals on their own and not rely on their parents or you to set them for them. Okay, what we've covered so far, the bare bones of what is needed to be moderately successful. The other chapters fill in some of the blanks. You may have certain students that you know need to focus on these chapters for increased success. If so, they can boost their participation grade or get extra credit points by reading the chapters and doing exercises in them. You can also have them practice chapter noting these chapters to make sure they've read them. Here are some hints about these chapters. Chapters 1, 2, and 3 lay the groundwork for who is responsible for their academic success. Chapter 7 is vital if there's a drama issue in your grade, in the dynamics of a group, or within a certain family. It covers what is good information versus what is gossip or garbage, and how to form appropriate support systems. Chapter 8 helps right brained and ADD/ADHD students rethink organization past carrying a binder that they shove crumpled papers into. Chapter 13 is there for your right-brained students that prefer to see the big picture before jumping into implementing a plan. About a third of the population are good planners, but they need the big picture first. This chapter is also important for students who have had too much hand-holding and inappropriate involvement from the adults in their lives. They've never gone through the whole process before, and they need a map to begin. Here are a few suggestions for applications of the study skills by subject. In English, your students can use the parts about research notes, note cards specifically for vocabulary or perhaps literature, and the overview of writing. In science, history, and any elective class, they can use the chapters on memory, chapter noting, lecture noting, and study cards. In math, they can use memory, lecture notes, and study cards. There's an asterisk beside lecture notes because students who are not naturally good at math often cannot figure out how to take notes in it. They tend to just copy what you have on the board. They may need direct instruction. Their notes can be very informative to the teacher, as they are an indicator of how well the student can reword the lesson and apply it. If they are only copying the exact information that you used, it may be time to investigate further for concept comprehension and application. Hi, we're at the end now. So, if you develop any questions in the future, please don't hesitate to drop me a line at bzoltek@smartstudyskillsbook.com or bzoltek@unlimitedlearning.biz. Please leave your name, email address, and a phone number, a brief question, and I will respond to your question as soon as I'm available. Thanks so much for using our Smart Study Skills series. I hope you enjoy it and the success it brings for your students.